Who do you think you are? In this episode, we embark on a profound exploration of self-image, identity, personal beliefs, and challenging the concept of a fixed identity. Have you ever wondered whether your self-image truly reflects the essence of who you are? Join us on this introspective journey as we unravel layers of perception, shedding light on the formless energy that exists before any idea or thought arises. This transformative conversation will delve into the depths of self-image and embrace the limitless potential that transcends on the boundaries of our perceived identity. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Gem.
Hi, welcome everybody. That was fun.
I thought I'd surprise you.
I was dancing around my bedroom and
Anyway,
who do you think you are?
no idea.
Me neither. That's the best way. Oh, hi. Nice to see lots of friendly faces. And so tonight, I think it's going to be a really open one, as always. Last week, we had quite a few questions and it worked really, really well. So as we sort of go on the first half an hour or so, if any questions pop into your mind, try and remember them and then either request to speak and ask at the end or just message me and I can go through the question for you because it really, really works. And like I said last week, we've got thousands of listeners all around the world that we've got no idea who they are. The question that you've got, someone might really need to hear. So bear that in mind. You guys are the real bread and butter of the podcast. You guys are the ones that get to be on the podcast. So anything that you want to contribute, we really, really would love that.
Yeah. You're our foundation. So, it's really important that you interact with us. And I've had messages from people before saying it's so weird. It's like what you spoke about was exactly what I needed to hear. It would have been my question. So you never know who you're going to connect with somewhere in like some far-flung place that is listening that you've asked the question that they needed the answer to also. So yeah, that is a really important point. Thanks, Gem.
No, my pleasure. And we started the podcast because our friends were struggling with mental health in Twitter, but it's just grown. And just want to say thank you to our sponsors. Vamp. Before we start, I did find something actually on LinkedIn of all places, and I was looking through some stuff the other day, and it's something that really made me think, and I think it's quite suited to the subject tonight. And it was from Dr. Sirhan. It was a picture of an iron bar. So if you imagine an iron bar in front of you, and this is what the text said. It said, this is an iron bar, and the value is around $100. If you decided to make horseshoes, its value would increase to $250. If instead you decided to make sewing needles, the value would increase to about 70,000. If you decided to produce watch springs, the value would increase to about 6 million. Your value is not just what you're made of, but above all, in which ways you can make the best of who you are. And I thought that was really beautiful, but also really, it's true, it's a fact. And if we can use our minds to realize that we can do that with ourselves, then the whole world of potential unfolds. So I thought that was really, really nice.
Yeah, I love that. I've never heard that before. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Thank you, darling. And yeah, thank you everyone for being here. Please subscribe to the podcast. It's on everything. It's on Apple. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're on Fountain. So wherever you listen to stuff, please go and subscribe to us because it really helps to get our followers up, because then when people may stumble across us, they're like, oh, they've got a lot of followers. We'll listen to this. So, again, you're our foundation. We're a team. So in any way that you can help us is always appreciated. So thank you so much. Gem, have you got anything else before we get going?
Yeah, for all of our listeners, and looking forward to really asking some questions tonight and getting into and really hopefully sparking some new thought waves in the audience tonight, because I think tonight is going to be huge. It's, who do we think we are is the basis of everything.
Yeah, it's our operating system, isn't it? It's a really interesting subject. But before we dig in, I'd just like you to relax. I'd like you to leave whatever thinking is troubling you at the door. You don't need it. This next hour, this is about unwinding with unminding. We just want you to let go of anything that's troubling you, because over the next hour, if you're listening to us, whatever it is, there's probably nothing you can do about it anyway. And I just want you to notice in your body where you can just relax a bit more, where you can check out a bit more. And our conversation that we point to, we always say it's deeply transformational. It will change your life. And your mind will have objections to that. Your mind will say, well, how can having a conversation and listening just change my life? It will resist. It will say that, well, surely I need a technique. I need something to do. We're so caught up in doing. And it's actually in the undoing, it's in the unminding that we start to really get a deeper sense of who we are. We really start to uncover our well-being and our happiness and all the things that we think we're searching for outside of ourselves. So yeah, you just notice how you feel during the call. For most people, it'll be lovely. It'll be checking out. There'll be a relaxation. For others, you might find that there's some resistance. It can be a bit like an itchy jumper. But if you can sit with that and go through it without switching it off, we just sit in and say, well, I was told that this may happen. And actually on the other side of that is going to be a peaceful feeling. So just be aware of what you're thinking and what you're feeling, and don't buy into it too much, because really what we're pointing to is that most of what we think isn't that helpful. And a lot of what we think we don't have to take as much notice of as we do. So who do we think we are? Who do you think you are? Just ponder that for a moment. Ponder all the different ways that we do think what we are. Is it a mother, a father, a lover, a husband, a wife, a waiter, a doctor, a revolutionary, a trader? What is it that you identify with? And then, a bit deeper than that, your judgments of yourself. Do you think you're not good enough? Do you think you're not happy enough? Do you think you're not rich enough, not pretty enough, not handsome enough, not tall enough, not small enough? Where are you judging this, who you think you are? Yeah, we can be so shitty to ourselves without realizing that these shitty thoughts are just thoughts that we've completely made up, have no validity. And then how we use that thinking and just say, well, that's just how I am. Well, that's just who I am. It's so detrimental to us to see it like that, to think like that. It's a cop-out. Can you see how, oh, that's just who I am. That's just how I am. Well, why? And who says? Why do you have to stick to that? Why can't you challenge that? Why can't you see it differently? Why can't you begin to explore why you believe that is true and why that most likely isn't true? Because there's always a new way of seeing it. It's like that self-image, is that really you? I'd hazard a guess that for all of us, it's not. It's a construct. It's the layers of thinking that we've believed over our lifetimes. Now, where that thought comes from is many different places. It's conditioning. But we're so deluded by it. We're so convinced by it that we've just accepted that as true, rather than seeing that maybe all those things that I think aren't true. Maybe because someone said I was that way and I've believed it. Why is that true? Surely I have my own experience that I can touch something within myself and see that, oh, I didn't have to take that on board. I didn't have to acquire that belief, that judgment. And look how they weaken us. It's not a position of strength to say, well, that's just how I am. It can be quite egoic, but it's not strength. It keeps us stuck. But there's something in challenging that thinking and seeing through it that there's so much growth available to us. If we can challenge our own thoughts that tell us who we are, we can have a new experience of being who we are. We're not a set, fixed person. I used to believe that because I said I was a certain way, I had to stick to that. And actually changing that thing about myself, whatever it was, would make me flaky or would make me, not true to my word, or, not showing up in the way that other people expected me to. But actually, change is beautiful. Seeing yourself in a new way is wonderful. Because actually most of the ways we see ourselves can be unhelpful. So suddenly having an insight that that isn't true and seeing yourself in a different way and changing is wonderful. One of the ways I think I've changed is I believe that I was a really sensitive person. And now I'm sensitive in a nice way, but I'm not oversensitive. I haven't got the trigger points and the sensitivity in me like I used to have. I've changed, and that's really, really good. But it's really interesting. I haven't been like that for years, but still I have members of my family say, "Oh, you're so sensitive." I think, well, I'm not really anymore. And you can see how other people tell you who you think you are. Yeah, they can say, oh, they're that type of person, you're that type of person. But it's just perspective, it's just thought. No one person can be the judge and jury on who you are, including yourself. So can you see how we can loosen up the experience of who do you think you are? Of the I am. Because after the who do you think you are question comes the I am. And actually the exploration in the I am is really helpful. So if you can just think of a way where you say I am and how that I am is detrimental or unhelpful to you. And then just think, well, why do I believe that? Why have I bought into that? That's bullshit. It's so interesting to explore ourselves and see our self-judgments and see where we're stuck and see what that belief actually creates in our life, because every belief is a creation. Yeah, it's not just that we believe it and that's it. It's a belief that then creates how our world appears. So if you're being shitty to yourself, you're going to be in a shitty world. If you're being kind to yourself, you'll be in a kind world. If you're being hateful, the world's going to be hateful. If you're being loving, the world's loving. What are we seeing? Where are we coming from? Why are we always limiting ourselves with our minds and our intellects and our egos? Think about where you limit yourself and keep yourself small. This has been really a thing I've been looking at in myself recently. I think it's really true when they say we're not scared of our weakness, we're scared of our power. I really see that. I can really feel that. It's so interesting. But what keeps that power, and it's not an ego power, it's something else. It's a real natural, creative, potential power. It's like the essence of who we are. And when we touch that space, there's so much that we can do from there that I can see how it can be scary and why we would limit ourselves and not do that. Because it's overwhelming in many ways, because it's everything. So that's where we're looking to. It's what's before the who you think you are is who you really are. And that is nothing to do with who you think you are. Nothing at all. So when you see why it's unhelpful to allow these I ams, these beliefs to govern you, then you have this potential to reinvent yourself. You see who you really are. In psychology, they've noticed in the brain when you get an insight is, to me, it's like a completely new way of seeing something. You thought it was one way and you get an insight and it's like, wow, it's completely different to how I thought. The brain creates new neural pathways. The form will reflect it. It's literally upgrading yourself by challenging yourself. And that doesn't mean that the world that we live in isn't beautiful. It is. The world of form has such beauty. It has, a lot of things that we don't like because we view them through our limited thinking. But for all the bad that we see, there is beauty and there is good. So this beauty that actually is at the core of who we are is who we are. And we cloud it and we dull it and we take away the shine with all the thoughts of what we are, which isn't who we are. And think about how we connect. Think about how we interact with each other. You are who you think you are, but then you're also interacting with people who you've made up who you think they are, and they're interacting with you who they think you are. So it's all these conceptualizations of you and of them in these interactions. And you can see how we can get fixed and stuck in our relating to other people. Because it's all projection. It's all seeing through the veil of our thinking, the veil of our beliefs, the veil of who we think we are, the veil of who others think they are. And the beauty to begin to see this is that none of it's really personal. Our thinking about us, other people's thinking about themselves, don't have to take it so seriously. We get to uncover something deeper, and that's how we have a different experience. You can't produce something greater than yourself outside of yourself. It's an inside job. It's always us. And how does that change occur? By looking at who we're not, because we can flip it. We can say, wow, that's not true. And we can do it with ourselves because we're aware of our own ego. We're aware of the ways in which we can be resistant. So if you think about having a conversation with someone else and you say to them, you go up against something they really believe is true, and you come at them saying, well, that's not true, and like you're talking shit, it's like straight away that person's going to go into defense. We do that with ourselves. We don't want to do that. We want to be more gentle. We just want to be like, oh, wow. Like almost inquiries is, why do I believe that's true? Like, is there a possibility that that isn't true? So if you imagine that in a conversation with someone else, you're not going into attack. You're opening a door to a conversation. You're opening the door for it to be seen differently. That's with my clients. It's always just opening these doors. Well, have you thought about the possibility of looking at it in that way? Is there this possibility of seeing it differently? And why do you believe that is true? Is it true? So all these concepts of who we think we are, they make sense to the ego, because the ego has to be there. We have to have a separation. We have to be a separation to experience the world of separation. We talked about that a lot. I think it was last week or the week before. So it's there. It's meant to be there. But that doesn't mean to say we can't shift our experience of this separation, of this identity, of this personality. Of course we can. Now, there's a certain amount of it that is reflection, that is going within, that is seeing something deeper. And there's a certain amount that would be action, which would be challenging yourself in the world of, why do I see it like that? Why do I behave like that? Why am I not doing that? What am I not doing because of an unhelpful belief that I could see through and then do, and then have a much better experience of being alive? I heard this the other day and I wrote it down, and I really liked it because it gives a sense of what we're speaking about when we talk about the separate self. Really makes sense to us as the human, but there's a deeper sense of who we are that doesn't make sense to the human, but we know it's there. And it's the concept of up and down seems to make sense from an earthly or gravitational perspective. But if you are somewhere out in space, it suddenly makes no sense at all. There is no up or down. It's like, wow, that's what we talk about. It's like, yeah, the humanness, the ego, the self is the up and down. We need those measurements. We need to quantify the experience. And when we go deeper, that's space. There's nothing there. There can't be. It's these expansions of the mind. It's these questionings of who we are. It's these explorations that take us into a deeper sense of who we are, which, as I said at the beginning, we can wonder, well, how the hell is that going to make a difference in my life? Great conversation, Molls. But, I need something practical. You'll be amazed how practical it is to begin to explore this, because what happens is you begin to just show up differently. Your old beliefs dissolve. Something looks different. You behave differently. You do something you thought you wouldn't do in a good way. It really does make a difference. So because we're talking about something deeper, doesn't mean to say it doesn't have any practical effects in the world. If anything, it has more, because we're going to the source of who we are. We're going to the deepest level of the who do we think we are, which is the I am. whatever your belief system is, the I am would be consciousness, God, prana, eternal, infinite oneness. And the more we're in harmony with the deepest sense of I am, not only does life get better, in my opinion, because we're having a richer experience of it. That doesn't mean to say, the outside experience is going to transform and you're going to win the lottery or whatever it is. It's not about that. It's something more than that. You become more creative. You become more loving. You become more compassionate. You come from a different place. Now, you still have your ego and you still sometimes don't come from that place, but the exploration of it is this seeds of knowing who we are really change the experience of our being. You know what I really love? Is that I know where to go when I feel bad. I know where to go when I'm lost. And it isn't anywhere outside of me. It's to listen to something in this understanding. It's to have a conversation with somebody that can point me back to this understanding. It's someone saying to me, you know what's going on here. You know it's you. You've just got to find your way home. And this place that I thought was outside of me, that I searched the world for and sat in meditation for days for and did all these things to uncover, was just right here. And it was just the simplest, most easiest thing. I'd complicated it so much. So whatever it is that you're using to look towards, remember, they're the pointer. They're the pointer home. The principles that we teach are the pointer home. Non-duality is the pointer home. Whatever it is, all the wonderful teachings of Eckhart or Jeff Foster, or all the other teachers that we love, Ram Dass, they're the pointer, not the point. Their words take you home, but they are not home. They are pointing towards it. So again, it's this uncovering of the depth of who we are isn't anything complicated. It isn't anything fancy. We are all it. You don't have to be special to see it. It's right there, underneath the thinking that you believe that isn't true. It's there for all of us. And as I said, for many of you on the call tonight, it will be that you'll find yourself dropping out of that thinking. As the hour progresses, the thoughts will calm. There will become less. You'll become quieter, stiller. Now, that isn't because you've done anything. That's because who you are underneath thought is starting to peek through. It's starting to be seen because thought is calming. So again, back to that simplicity that we're talking about. It isn't complicated. It's who you are. It's not something you have to find. There's a lovely quote by Jack Pransky. And it's all we are is peace, love and wisdom, and the power to create the illusion that we are not. And I love that. Think about how many times a day you create that illusion that you're not. God, I do it all the time. It's so wonderful just to know that even when I'm lost, I know where home is. I may not feel it, but I just know it's there. There's a Ramana Maharishi quote as well. It's self-realization is not a state which is far from you and which has to be reached by you. You are always in that state. You forget it and identify yourself with the mind and its creations. To cease to identify yourself with the mind is all that's required. And that's what we point you to every week. And this reminder every week will deepen your seeing of that, will deepen your understanding of that, will ground you in the knowing of who you are rather than who you are not. And I know I've said this so many times, but the world that we live in, a form, is so tangible. We have these senses that we experience it through. And so it's so easy to forget about this unseen, this invisible true nature that we are. because the world of form is literally in our faces, actually what our faces are made of. So it's so compelling, it's so convincing. So the fact that you all come on every week or listen on the podcast every week is amazing, because you're just taking that time. You're allowing yourself, you're gifting yourself the time to just for a little while explore something other than the form, to see something of the depth of who you really are. And I think that that's one of the greatest gifts that we can give to ourselves, is to begin to understand our true nature. I know for me, I wouldn't swap it for anything. You could say to me, there's $10 million or however many Bitcoin, and I'm gonna wipe your memory of this. And I'd be like, no, I'm gonna take away your knowing. No, because I know that this is priceless. That what this gives me is that everything I need to get through any situation in my life. And to not know it and still be lost looking around the world to fulfill me, to make me whole when it was never out there, would just be, I just wouldn't want to be back there. If in some ways it was fun, in a lot of ways it wasn't. And then I had this kind of wake up call to this understanding and this insight and this seeing, and it was like, oh, now I'd searched all over the world for it, and it happened in my childhood bedroom, in my childhood town, on a rainy Tuesday night in February. And it was like, oh, it was always there. Wasn't in India, wasn't in Thailand, wasn't in any other places that I went to try and find it. It's already there. So that's the beauty of the uncovering. And the seeing of it will be your perfect seeing of it. It'll be your way of seeing it. It will be in the perfect time for you to see it. And it's just that. It's like, don't try and rush it. Don't try and get anywhere. Don't try and be anything. Just listen. And at some point you'll fall out of your conceptual mind into something deeper and have a richer experience of being who you are. And who you think you are will change. And you'll begin to see that. You'll begin to see the changes and the fluidity in that. Because we're only ever home. We just forget it over and over and over again. Gem.
Well, thank you. And I think that's such an important point about that the understanding is completely priceless. It's like the Ram Dass quote where he says it's like taking off a pair of really tight shoes.
Yeah.
We didn't even know we were wearing them. We knew that there was a problem or there was something that wasn't right. But as soon as you see this, it's like, wow, okay, I have got the power to basically show up however I want. And I think one thing that's really important for listeners is that depending on, your conditioning or what kind of life you've lived so far, it can be really, really hard on your ego. And I'd just like you to explain something that was quite surprising for me, actually, because I was under the impression for my whole life that your ego was there to show off. It was the sort of grandeur part of you that was, egotistical, that was probably selfish. I didn't realize that the ego is the thing that's keeping you attached to who you are not. So it can be very negative, very terrible self-talk. So would you be able to just explain what the ego actually is and how it keeps us trapped? Because I was under a completely different impression that really opened up my mind. Does that make sense?
Help if I unmuted myself. Absolutely, darling. Yeah, it's like we can be really tricked into thinking the ego is just a show off and that nothing else is ego, but ego is all of the things. It's the show off, it's the introvert, it's that I'm not good enough, it's that I'm the best thing since sliced bread. It's all the ways that the ego creates the identity. In fact, the founder of the 3 principles was a gentleman named Sydney Banks. And I highly recommend that you go search him out and look for his videos. He's passed now, but his work is really beautiful and really kind of cuts like a knife through butter. He's got a lovely way of explaining it. And he said all personal thought is ego. All the things that we think about ourselves is ego. And I thought that was really interesting. If you think about the ego, it's obsessed with the self. We get really caught up in the me, me, me. That is the ego, and that doesn't mean just show off. That's all the many, many, many ways we make everything about us. Is that helpful?
It is. And for anyone that's listening, you are here because you're supposed to be. Some people will never, and I've had to sort of realize this when I try to shove it down some of my friends' throats, that they're just not interested. They don't want to understand. They are very happy with their lives, how it is. But if you are here and you're listening, it's because something is telling you that there is more, and there really, really is. So staying in the conversation, but also knowing that you will have that voice in your head saying, you can't do this, or you don't need to do this, or this is rubbish, or whatever it may be. But just quieten that and all sort of unveil itself. And it is incredible. It's changed my life massively. And yeah, that's why we share it so much.
And also remember that the ego is going to be resistant, because why would the ego want to give up its power? It's like the ego does everything to secure itself. And what we're doing is we're poking at it and saying, oh, you're talking crap. And so it's going to sometimes kick off. You may find resistant thinking to this, or wanting to move away from it, or uncomfortable feelings around it. But they're really very, very temporary. Actually, the goodness that you'll get from it will far outweigh any of that. Because why would we want to make the ego the master, which is what we've done? It should be our servant, but we've let it completely control our whole lives. And it's like, where it doesn't look like ego, it probably is if you're making it about you. And just to catch yourselves in those areas and challenge yourself and see that, oh shit, yeah, even that area. I work with people sometimes and they come and they're lovely people, but their whole ego is in service, but it's in service in such a way that they're unhappy because they're not getting what they want from the service that they're giving. You know, whether it be looking after someone in a relationship, whatever it is. And then when you point out that, well, that is not true service, that's ego. They're actually doing what they're doing because they want to get what they want back and fulfill their needs and securities. So actually, it's all kind of distorted. It's not clear. It's not a pure love that comes from you and isn't involved in the ego. It's you're doing it to manipulate. And when they see it, it's like, holy shit, my God, that's exactly what I was doing. And that's so powerful to see in ourselves. But we've got to be brave to admit that we do that. We have to be brave to say, God, yes, sometimes I can do that too. But it's when you catch yourself, you undo it, you do it differently. And that's what's really important, is that we show up differently by exploring this and challenging ourselves and seeing those areas where the ego gets hold, even when it doesn't look like it, because the ego's so tricky, and go beyond it and have a better experience.
Yeah, and it's amazing because, you know, you might be 20 years old, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, and you're just starting to listen to this. So you have to bear in mind that you've got however many years of thinking through and seeing life through the old way, if you like. You always see things online that, oh, the healing journey is so magical. It's been quite fucking stressful at some points, you know, but I would not want to be doing anything else, because I know that the person that I had been my whole life actually wasn't really working for me. And the person I am underneath is actually pretty okay, but I never saw that before. So it is extremely amazing, but it can be hard, but it's nothing else like it. It's probably the most worthwhile thing I've ever done. And hopefully you guys can all see some differences in yourselves as well.
Yeah. I just want to point out one thing as well that the ego does is victim or victor. Like, where are you, victim or victor? You'll notice it in that as well. You know, am I in my victim mentality, or am I in my I can rule the world mentality? It's observing, and it's that observant space of the self with truth and honesty, but we're not kidding ourselves that we can really see that. And I totally love what you just said there, Gem. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to bring up Sheridan. We've got a request. So thank you very much. And anybody else that wants to request, you're more than welcome. But I'm really finding that there is no middle ground. You're either coming from a place of love or fear. That's it. There's no middle ground. And when you can catch yourself coming from a place of fear, that's when you have to say, why? What am I fearful of? It's my own thinking. So, hi, Sheridan. Nice to have you here.
Hi, I'm a little bit new to this, so I had a question since I'm contemplating a decision. I'm thinking about adopting children, but it's also a bit of a, that's quite a bit of a financial burden for, especially if you're in the States. Adoption fees are, silly. So, which is the ego? Is it my desire to adopt children or the fear of the expense?
Great question. Well, I think the desire to have children and love is actually can be quite a pure thing. It's not necessarily ego. I don't think I had my son out of ego. It came from love. And so I challenge that a little bit. I wouldn't say that that's an egotistical thing to want to do. Because actually having a kid is the most selfless thing that you can do. You really don't have as much room for the self as you used to once you have a child. The financial side of it, I would say, would be ego, but doesn't mean to say it's wrong. We still have to make practical decisions in the world based on finances. We're living in a world of full. We're living in a material world. So that is definitely something to consider. But if you're over worrying about it, and if money maybe isn't that much of a big deal, but you're thinking that it's too much of a burden, that could definitely be the ego kicking in. I would say that with something like that, you do have to have a heart decision, but the head does have to come into it. It really does. You have to see the practicalities of it. Having a child isn't the easiest thing in the world. So I would, if you're unsure, one of my favorite things is I don't have to make a decision, but a decision will be made. Because what we often do is we really get caught up in opposing thinking in our minds. And that's what you're doing. It's like you've got two opposing thoughts. So you've got the thinking about wanting to adopt, and you've got the thinking opposing it about the financials. So if you can begin to see, we are not going to get an answer from thought, because that's thinking at your current level of thought, because it's literally just having a tennis match right now. So if you can let go and know that not knowing is also an answer, we think that there's only a yes or a no. Well, I don't know is in there. And we spend so much of our time in I don't know. It's really good to get comfortable with it. And from that place of I don't know and letting go of what you think you know, there will be a decision come through. There will be a aha moment. And I think with any decisions like that, any heart decisions, any huge decision, it's never a logic thing. It's going to be that moment where you go, I'm going to do it, or I'm not going to do it. It's going to be a real come from within. I know what I'm going to do here. It's not going to come from this intellect that thinks it knows the decision and thinks there's a decision to be made by the intellect when there isn't. Is that helpful? Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I was just there's just got people walked into my room.
Okay.
Well, I'll just add something then, because I think it's an amazing question and obviously a huge, huge life decision. Obviously, your main driver is that you want to adopt, which is amazing. But then you've got that voice saying, oh, can I afford what kind of life and all these things? I've always found that if I've got two different beliefs about a situation, one of them's generally negative and one of them's generally positive. So if by thinking or worrying about money, that may be limiting your view and not allowing certain things to come into your life. And I actually read something this morning, and your question made me think of it straight away. And it says, you spend your time worrying about what could go wrong when your soul is waiting for you to get excited about everything that could go right. And I truly believe that, especially with something with love, with people, with family, you will create whatever you need to do to make that work. And if you have that belief, then I don't think that anything can stop you. But obviously, it's a huge decision.
Yeah, Gem, that's beautiful. Thank you. I think they've gone off, but I hope if they haven't been able to listen to the answer, that they listen onto the recording, because I think it's so easy to get caught in that mind. It really is. So getting back to the compelling nature of our personal intellect, it's going to think that it knows what to do. No big decision you've ever made has come from your intellect. It's come through you. And we forget that. And then we've got a decision to make. We start focusing on the intellect again. It's like, no, not there. you will know when you know, like everything that we've ever known, we've known when it was the right time to know. And that isn't on us. But actually in that letting go, it's when we see things, it's like Buddha's sitting under the tree when he finally let go of desiring enlightenment, enlightenment came. The bigger things, the heart-centered things are a knowing, and we can't force knowing.
Yeah, I think that question was amazing.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming up and sharing that. And hopefully you heard the answer. And yeah, let us know what you decide and how the future works out for you. We did have a response last week. We had a question from, he's a British listener, but living in Australia. And he was questioning whether to move back to the UK and things. So we had a response and he said, Molls, that was really excellent and everything that I could want in an answer. I think I am spending too much time thinking I have to be there and it's stopping me living my life to the fullest here. I'm going to listen to it a few times so it really sinks in with me. So thank you for getting back to us. And that's a listener on the podcast. So yeah, we really love having questions. Like I said, anybody could have these types of questions. We don't know who's listening right now that's thinking about adoption. So it's really wonderful to have you guys come up. And if there is anyone else, then please press the button to request.
And just it's not even questions, is it? It's insights. Everybody's got wisdom. It might be something you've heard that looks different to you that you come up and share. God, yeah, this really has helped me. This has changed that area of my life, or this does look different, because we can all share that and we all get something from that that's quite wonderful. When I get a message from a client, or we get a message from someone on the podcast and they say how it's touched them, how it's changed them, how there's something different for them. It literally, I want to cry. Sometimes I do. It's so emotional to know that we're all the same. We're all one. We're all connected. And that it can just be the littlest thing that someone hears that you say or we say that will make such a profound impact on them. And we can't forget that, the impactful nature of our presence, of our listening, of our connecting with people. And that's not just me and Gem doing this, it's all of us, it's every one of us. We have that within us. So always share what you can, explore what you can, connect with whoever you can, and just really begin to see the potential of who you are and who other people are. We don't look at people often with seeing their full potential. We look at them through our limited vision and our limited understanding of who they are. So if you begin to look at people through the eyes of what we're teaching, people aren't used to being seen in that way. It's a very powerful thing.
And you can almost play tests on yourself, because people really show up how you expect them to show up. And it can be quite surprising if you have someone in your life that's maybe a bit difficult. You're probably always expecting them to be difficult. And then all of a sudden, when you decide to change the way you view them, they might actually turn out to be quite pleasant. And it could have been you picking up things. It really does all come from us. An example of this actually was last night. I wasn't going to share it, but it's quite funny. So for whatever reason, I decided to move my bed around recently to have my head the other direction. And I'm lying in bed last night. And for the first time ever, I've been here for a couple of years, I can see the moon out of the blinds, like right at the top. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I can't believe that I've never seen it from my bed. And I was lying there looking at it and just thinking really lovely thoughts for about 10 minutes. And I thought, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go and have a look. So I get up and I stand at the blinds and I open the blinds, and it's a fucking lamppost. It's a lamppost that I've never seen from that position. I just start laughing because I was almost tearful at how beautiful the moon was and how lovely I felt and how great everything was. And I stood up, it must have been about 12:30, and I just started laughing. And I was like, wow. But it just goes to show that you can create your reality however you want it. In that moment, I was so amazed. And then I actually realized that the moon's on the other side of the house anyway. But it was just quite incredible. And it's little things like that. I'm not going to forget that. And it's every time I've seen a lamppost today, I'm laughing to myself. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. But there is so much to see when we decide to open our eyes. And, I can go like sometimes quite volatile in my moods. I can want to sometimes not see anything that's good if I've not been speaking to people or if I've isolated myself for a couple of days. And then as soon as I put myself out there, I talk to people, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So it's just, yeah, really pushing yourself to create a life that you deserve. And yeah, just feeling really grateful. And yeah, it's just quite amazing when you realize that you're not the person that you thought you are, especially if it wasn't really doing you well in life.
Yeah, if you're making up a shitty story, it's not good. Why not just make up a new story? You know, it's so changeable and we forget. But I'm going to love hanging out with you next, because every time I go past the lamppost, I'm going to go, look, Gem, the moon.
Oh, shut up. It will happen as well. But
It really will.
yeah, there's so much to be grateful for. And if we're all living in our own illusion, then let's make it a good one.
Yeah, it's just a wonderful exploration, guys. And we know so many of you have been with us for a long time. And we know you know that because you come back every week with something. When you hear it, when you're ready for it, it finds you. You didn't find it, it found you. I'm a big believer in that. And then we connect and then we explore and everything just gets easier. And again, as Gemma and I always say, it's not always easy. Life gets simple, but it's not always easy. But we have now something that helps us, that guides us through it. We've woken up to something within us that's always there, that never leaves us, that we can rely on. And, you know, what could be better than that? Because everything that we rely on in the world could be taken away at any moment. So to know who you are within, that essence of the true self, the true nature, the eternal being is like, wow, yeah, that's not going anywhere. That's always with me. That's who I really am.
Yes, it is. Well, it's from black and white to colour for me. And I really hope you guys are feeling that too, in regards to every week showing up. I mean, I listen to the podcast and other things just because it really, really helps me. But any topics or anything specific that you'd like us to discuss, please get in touch. So we want to give you guys as much info and resources as we can. So I think, unless we have any other questions, that has been a very wonderful hour and I hope you've all enjoyed it. Just want to say thank you again to our sponsor, who are them.xyz. You can check them out there. And thank you all for being here and the really wonderful question. And I hope you get to listen to the answer, Sheridan. Oh, we've got a quick Josh. Let's get a quick Josh in.
Let's have a quick Josh. Can't be a quick Josh.
Well, I think it's probably maybe the same in America, but joshing around means joking around over here. Hi, Josh.
Hello, ladies.
Hi, Josh.
Hiya.
Hi. So before we sign off, all of this made me think of a certain quote by Albert Camus. So the quote goes, "My dear, in the midst of hate, I found there was within me an invincible love. In the midst of tears, I found there was within me an invincible smile. In the midst of chaos, I found there was within me an invincible calm. I realized through it all that in the midst of winter, I found there was within me an invincible summer. And that makes me happy, for it says that no matter how hard the world pushes against me, within me, there's something stronger, something better pushing back."
Thank you, Josh. I love that. Yeah, I do know it, but thank you for reminding me of it, because it's such a powerful little, it's not really a poem, is it? Just a little statement. And it really points to this whole conversation we've had tonight, probably every episode of Unminding. You know, it's what's within us. Thank you again so much. It's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you for coming up, Josh. And we really appreciate your interaction. You're here pretty much every week, and everything that you give or everything you say. Yeah, everything you share is really wonderful. And, you know, if you'd like to apply for an unpaid job, then you're more than welcome.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Yeah, it's amazing the people that we've connected through this little podcast. Well, it wasn't even a podcast, these little spaces that we started 18 months ago and has grown and grown. And we really, honestly, we appreciate you so much, all you guys that show up every week, all you guys that listen on the podcast. If you're new, thank you too, you know, and we hope you stick around.
You're helping us realize our potential. You're helping us realize the power that we're born with, that
for whatever reason, we forgot. We're coming back to realizing that, we are incredible, amazing, resilient beings. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. And in that, we have so much strength that the world has led us to forget about. And that's, I know for me that you have helped me remind, listening to these things. And it's, I guess, who do you think you are? When I first started listening, that's kind of one of the main questions, like, why am I thinking this way? Why do I think this? Why am I, just questioning myself and realizing who I am and why I'm thinking these things. And, like all of these unnecessary things that I've constructed, it's, I can come back to the power of who I am. And, it's amazing that, can share this space and you can point out and you're helping us all realize who we are in our own way. We may not share it back with the world, but I can almost guarantee every single person who's in here who listens and has been listening, they're going out in the world and experiencing, a fuller, truer self, and they're also spreading that realization to others. So I am because we are, and y'all are doing amazing things in the world. So thank you.
Oh, Josh, that's wonderful. And it's a privilege to be able to point you all home, to do this little spaces, this little podcast, and to point people back to their true nature. And yeah, it literally, that's it. That's all I can say. It's a true privilege. We're blessed to be able to do it. I am that we are. I love that too. Thank you so much for showing up every week and for sharing.
Thank you, Josh. And I will just leave you with, I think it was from last week's space actually, but we posted it on Instagram yesterday. If you don't follow us there, come and follow us. And we said the power of transformation lies within us. And the key to unlocking our greatest potential is to look within, to discover the wisdom that is stored there. We're all on the journey of realizing that everything we need is inside, and the outside world is trying to tell us the opposite. So we're cracking the code slowly but surely. Yeah, and it's all from inside.
Yeah, escaping the matrix. I love it. And I've just got one as well that I picked out earlier that I think is perfect. And this is from Enza Vita. And it's anything that appears and disappears cannot actually be you, because it is being observed by you. By removing the attention from these things and noticing what remains, you are left only with what is permanent, the truth of who you are. So thank you, everybody, and we really, really look forward to seeing you all next week.